Behind the glitz and glamour of BTS's mega concerts, which captivate millions of eyes, lies a story of unseen hard work. A story of secret practice, sweat dripping onto the studio floor, and a bond that never fades, even when time separates them. And this time, the camera captured one of the most touching moments in their history, when three key figures, Jungkook, Jin, and J-Hope, reunited for a group practice. Not on stage, not in front of thousands of spectators, but in a simple practice room with minimal lighting and a warm atmosphere. That's where it all began again. Jin, who had just completed his mandatory military service, wore a denim jacket and the gentle smile ARMY had longed for. His calm aura was the perfect counterbalance to the two younger brothers waiting for him. On the other hand, Jungkook, the golden magne, appeared in all black, focused, silent, but his gestures spoke louder than words. Meanwhile, J-Hope appeared with his signature style, a blue beanie, a Tupac t-shirt, and an ever-burning spirit. He wasn't just a dancer. That day, he was the leader, motivator, and emotional anchor of the entire practice session. "Let's go," he called out, breaking the silence and igniting enthusiasm. It was a simple-sounding phrase, but it carried a profound meaning. Because this time, they weren't just repeating the choreography, but trying to put together the pieces that had been scattered by distance and time. In the intense choreography practice, J-Hope didn't just demonstrate the movements, but guided them. He touched Jin and Jungkook's shoulders, corrected their hand positions, and suggested their gazes. Jungkook, with his musical sensibility, repeated the movements until his body moved without thinking. Each step was precise, yet full of feeling. Jin, though initially nervous, showed that he hadn't lost his signature touch. When he made a mistake, he smiled and said, "Do it again. Left foot first, not right." Everyone laughed. The tension melted away. They laughed together, patted each other on the shoulder, and encouraged each other. "Hyung, that's so cool," Jungkook shouted, clapping his hands. Jin responded with his own impromptu model pose, while J-Hope freestyled like a child at a playground. That's BTS, not just an idol group, but friends who have grown together through thick and thin. Then it was time for vocal practice. The dark room transformed into a silent, meaningful stage. One by one, they sang songs that had accompanied their long journey: Spring Day, Fake Love, and For Youth. J-Hope repeated the rap verses with full intensity. Jungkook tested the high notes with his eyes closed, trying to absorb each lyric. And Jin, with his soft voice, managed to bring the atmosphere to a state of emotion. When the lyrics, "You Are My Youth," came on, several staff members bowed, silently wiping away tears. Because the moment wasn't just about singing, but about memories, about gratitude that the three of them were together again. Beneath the sweat, there was love. Jungkook, with his random jokes, suddenly played a fast-paced dance song to cool things down. J-Hope immediately responded with playful moves that made everyone laugh. Jin, not to be outdone, imitated a runway model, sending the room into a frenzy once again. They worked hard, yes, but they also knew how to savor every moment together. Rehearsal after rehearsal, they refined their movement transitions, discussed stage timing, and even determined the best moments to let the audience sing along. J-Hope led the concert rundown, Jungkook matched his vocal parts to the movements, and Jin ensured that emotional moments had pauses, so they resonated. They considered every tiny detail. Nothing was haphazard. Nothing was half-hearted. And then, at one point, when their bodies were tired but their hearts were still warm, they sat cross-legged in the middle of the studio. Breathing was still heavy, sweat still dripping. But they were laughing. They were speaking from the heart. "I was nervous," Jin said with a smile. "But now, it feels like home." Jungkook nodded, his eyes glazed over. "This is a new beginning," he said quietly. Then J-Hope, with teary eyes and a steady voice, concluded, "The most precious thing about BTS is that we grow together. We are never alone." The sentence was quiet, but it echoed, empowering. The rehearsal continued with an improvisation session. They let loose. Jungkook beatboxed, Jin danced in a hilarious style, and J-Hope transformed into an impromptu DJ. Laughter filled the room. The camera silently captured the magic. The day had passed. The practice studio was now deserted. But their footsteps remained on the wooden floor, traces that reflected not only choreography, but also memories. And although practice ended that night, BTS's emotional journey had only just begun. The next day, the atmosphere in the briefing room was very different. This wasn't just a technical meeting. It was a family gathering before the big day. Jin arrived early with a cup of coffee in hand, greeted by J-Hope's bright smile as he reviewed the setlist. Jungkook arrived last, earphones in, still playing the recording of last night's practice. "I can't sleep," Jungkook said as he sat up, his eyes still heavy. "Every time I hear For Youth, it feels like we're back on our debut stage." J-Hope smiled faintly. "That's a sign you still have the same fire. A fire that never goes out." Jin looked at his two younger brothers. He said nothing, but in his silence there was a deep sense of emotion. Perhaps after all this, he realized that the stage isn't just where he sings, but where he feels alive. A few hours before the concert, they did their final run-through. This time, it wasn't in a small studio, but in a real arena. The seats were still empty, but the sacred aura was already palpable. The stage lighting was tested. The microphones were checked. The song transitions were refined. The choreography was performed one last time. Jungkook walked to the edge of the stage, staring out into the still dark stands. "Tonight, it'll be full. But right now, it's just us here." Jin stood beside him. "We used to stand on stage like this, with skinny bodies and trembling voices," he recalled. "Now, we stand as people who have grown together." Then J-Hope approached, and for a moment, the three of them were silent. No one broke the silence, because there were no words to describe the pride, longing, and gratitude they felt. Then time began to pass quickly. The day slowly turned to night. The production team bustled. Staff milled about. The lights came on. Mics were set up. ARMY began filling the stands, carrying light sticks, banners, and hopes. In the backstage waiting area, Jin, Jungkook, and J-Hope stood together. Background music blared from the speakers, and the crowd cheered. Only minutes remained. But these seconds were the most profound. J-Hope turned to his two friends, his voice soft but firm. "We're not just returning to the stage. We're returning to the reason why we started all this." Jin held their hands. "If tonight is a dream, I don't want to wake up." Jungkook nodded slowly. "It's not a dream, Hyung. This is proof that our dreams do come true." The stage lights went out. The intro music began to play. And behind the large screen, three figures stood in silence. Their hands intertwined. Their breaths mingled. At that moment, the world had no idea that in the next few steps, they would create a night they would never forget. Not just for ARMY, but for themselves. Because that night was a night born of longing, built from sweat, and lived forever in love. And when they stepped onto the stage, the world finally knew. BTS never left. They were simply preparing to return in a stronger, more sincere, and more meaningful way.